we've got to really think about all of our income and how often it happens. Because when we work out how much we want to earn for the year, we do have to think about how much we're actually working. So when we're looking at it, we do need to look at our numbers. We do need to look at what's going on with our books and how we can work our books out over the time that we work. Hello and welcome. Mentoring with Geraldine is a bite-sized practitioner podcast for naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, and practitioners. This podcast responds directly to your needs, the needs of the practicing natural therapist. With interviews, herbal discussions, something business and something clinical each week, you'll get the variety you need and enjoy to stay motivated in practice. Hello everyone and welcome to Mentoring with Geraldine and the bite-sized podcast. How the devil are you? Now, you may have listened to our last podcast, and in that one I talked to Emily Banks and we talked about mentors and money and business mentoring. And it made me suddenly realize that I don't actually use Xero. I use a different system but very similar, and I did use Xero for a long time. I do use Stripe, and I do check my numbers, right? So it's really important that we check our numbers, that we have a look at least as a minimum once a week to see what's happening with our numbers and what's going on with them. Now, within Stripe, you've got a reports overview, and that's really interesting. It tells you your gross volume in comparison to last year, what was going on. So we need to see, when we look at our gross volume, we do want to compare to what was going on last year, but we also have to take into account, like this year, I'm behind. I'm earning less this year than I was last year, but I didn't work in January and I was away in November, which means I wasn't promoting for this year at the beginning of this year. So it is understandable that I have a lower return in my first quarter. Now, I don't want that to continue, do I? I want to earn as much, if not more, than I earned last year. So I need to be on top of my numbers so that I can check what's working for me and what's not working for me. All right. So within your Stripe, and if you are with Xero, then you can see it within Xero or whichever system you're using. You can make sure that you understand what your annual recurring revenue, your ARR, is, because that's the amount a customer pays annually. All right. So we want to know what that is. We want to know what our MRR is, which is our monthly recurring revenue, because that's what the customer pays us. Not just annually, which is the ARR, but they pay us on a monthly basis. Now, that's not just one person. We're talking about all of our customers here. So we've got to really think about all of our income and how often it happens. Because when we work out how much we want to earn for the year, we do have to think about how much we're actually working. So I took November off, so that's 4 weeks. I always take some of July off. This year I've got some of June and July off, and it looks like I might be away in August. So I'm not working 52 weeks of the year. So when I think about my monthly recurring revenue, I also have to think about that squished up or spread out to my annual recurring revenue. All right. Now, I am not an accountant. I am not the one who can give you financial advice. These are only things that I've learned over time. You need to go and get real financial advice from an accountant or from someone. You may have a friend who's into this who can help you out if you can't afford an accountant. Your bookkeeper should be able to help you out with some of these numbers. My bookkeeper sends me a review of my return, and it's pretty confronting when I get it, because I always spend too much money and I'm not paying myself enough and putting it into my mortgage. I'm buying things, and I know that's one of my problems. So, I don't spend it on shoes anymore because, I work from home, so I don't need lots of new shoes. But I do buy courses and trainings and apps and tech stuff all the time. And so I have to know how much I'm earning to be able to buy these things that I enjoy having and these systems that I want and still make money. So what we also want to know is the lifetime value of a customer, and it's important to understand how much you can spend to attract a customer. So when we think about the lifetime value of our customer, we're thinking about how much they spend over their lifetime, and that can be told to you through your Stripe report. Okay, because we want to know how much is the average of that customer. How much does it cost us to get that customer. So if we've got Facebook ads going and we work out our Facebook ads and every customer, we have to spend $5,000 in adverts on Facebook to get one customer, and our average customer spend is $2,000, then we're losing $3,000, aren't we? If we're spending $5 per customer and their average spend is $1,000, then great. What's our customer acquisition cost? It's $5 per customer. So this is an area where many businesses get in trouble as they spend too much to attract those customers, and they think, I'll just make that up later. But we can't make things up later. It's like me buying something else. I can't necessarily return it. You can't return a lot of tech stuff. You can't return courses that you buy because once you've opened them, you're in there. So we really have to think, is this amount of money, how much is it costing me to get them? How much trouble is it costing me to get them? Maybe it takes you all week to create your Facebook advert that then spends $2,000 and gets you no one, or it takes you 5 minutes to create a Facebook advert and then it costs $5 and that person then spends $1,000 with you. So we do have to look at our costs. We do have to look at how much it costs us to gain clients and where we're gaining them from, because it might be that you spend a lot of money on Facebook advertising and you get no one. And then you think, you know what, I might just try a little bit, because I create recipes and I take photographs of everything I cook. And I put them onto Pinterest. So maybe I'll try some Pinterest advertising. But we have to understand that Pinterest advertising is actually slow burn advertising. It's very different, and that is the algorithm is very different, but it is still a major search engine. So it might be that neither of those make you a return even over the time you use them, and then you drop $10 on a Google advert and hey presto, you've got people coming in the door. So it is about trying things out, but not spending a lot of money to do so. All right, now I am no advertising, like paid advertising expert, I can tell you that, but I have done enough of it in my time to know that I want to see a return and I want value and I want to be able to work out my value per client, how much it's cost me to gain each client, and whether or not there is a return in that. Sometimes when we're doing something like Facebook advertising, we might just be doing it to get our name out there. So a couple of years back, I wrote my story. So in the academy, we talk about writing your story so that people understand who you are, they know where you're coming from, what your values are, why you're doing what you're doing, and all of the background behind you. So there's a lot of information on creating your story in the academy. But then I advertised my story. Now that had a huge reach. Now I got followers from that. The point of it was not to sell anything. So there was no, what I spent was what I spent on increasing my followers. So that's what we need to know. How much did it cost me to gain those followers? And did those followers then buy anything from me? So that's harder to work out, because sometimes when we're advertising to people to just say, hey, I'm here, come and find me, because you're a cold audience. We want to turn you into a warm audience within our group and then turn you into a hot audience and get you buying off me. So we've got to know what our figures are and how much it costs to get each client. Now, something that, because I have a membership, the Academy is a membership, so you can pay once at the beginning of the year, and then you actually get extra time with me, you get an extra appointment with me, and you get a month free. So it's worth paying once. But lots of people pay monthly, and they've been paying monthly since I started it a few years ago. And the thing about memberships in general is they have what's called a churn rate, a high churn rate. Now I have a very low churn rate in my academy because I spend a lot of time in there. I talk to people, I check on people. People get one-to-ones with me, which in most memberships you don't get. That's not a normal membership. Normally it's recorded stuff. There's a Facebook group, you'd watch something in a Facebook group, whereas people get that opportunity to be with me, talking to me directly and asking me questions. So we've got to think about our churn rate, and we can still think about it. So for an academy, for a membership, my churn rate is very low because people have been with me a very long time, but we still have a churn rate with our one-to-one clients. And this is what I talk about all the time, in the Confident Consulting webinar that I do, in the mini trainings that I do, when we talk finding your flow, that is all about the churn rate of the one-to-one client, because we want to keep them. It's the number of customers you lose during a specific period. So I look at everything quarterly rather than monthly, because I do take those holidays that are within certain quarters. So I tend to look at things quarterly rather than monthly, because last year I took I took July, whereas this year I'm taking some of June. So if I can't compare the months of July last year to the month of July this year, and I certainly can't compare June, but if I compare the quarter. So because acquiring new customers is expensive, we've got to advertise for them, we've got to work hard for them, we might have that one-to-one conversation with them. We've got all of the things that happen when it comes to acquiring that client, all of that social media activity you do, creating all those Canva posts and all the rest of it. So it's almost always cheaper to keep a client than it is to add new customers. Now, we all want new customers. But we have to look after our current customers. And what are you doing to look after your current customers? How are you encouraging them to come back to you? Because we don't want them to disappear. So when I started out, I'd discharge people. I'd say, I've helped you solve your problem. We've dealt with, your bad guts or whatever it is. And now I don't need to see you anymore. I've discharged you. And, when I look at that now, that's really foolish because those people will have new problems. I work with a lot of 50, 60-year-olds. So they're going into a time when other things are changing. I might have fixed their guts, but they're heading into the part of their life. How do you word that? The portion of their life where, we need to look after our heart. We need to look after our lungs more. We're more susceptible to things going wrong, broken bones. So how am I making sure that they remember that I exist to come back to me? Because I know them well. So even when you're niched in something, you can generally, once you know that person, you can help other aspects of them. It might be that they come back to you and they have something rare or something you totally don't do. I don't see clients with cancer, so maybe that client, I fix their guts and I stay in contact with them, I have regular checkups with them, and then they come back to me and they say, I've got cancer. Then they would appreciate my referral, referring them to somebody that I trust, and they would love that because they would trust the person they are going to because they trusted me, and that referral would mean a lot to them, and that increases, their love of me and mine of them, and again reduces my churn rate because they sort out the cancer, something else happens, they'll come back to you. All right. So we really need to be conscious of how often we're discharging people or they're dropping off our books, and that we're following up with them because we don't want to lose them as a customer. Now, renewal rate. This is the number of customers who renew the product when renewal comes. So the higher this rate, the lower your churn rate. So when we think about our renewal rate, that is, they're coming back for their reviews. Maybe you have a standardized review practice where you see people every 6 months. It might just be a telephone call, but following people up every 6 months means that they will renew, yes, their acquaintance, but they might also be purchasing something from you at that point. They might be renewing a membership. They might be purchasing a product from you that they haven't purchased for 6 months, even though it's something that is really good for them and they know they need. So that's part of that churn rate, is that renewal rate. So the churn is kind of them, they're the ones you lose, whereas renewal are the ones who are coming back. And then sales funnel conversion rates. So the higher the conversion rate within the funnel, the more closed customers and the lower the customer acquisition cost is. So we've got to make sure that if we have a funnel in place, so we are advertising to people and they find out about us and then they come onto our list, so onto our email list, and then we're emailing them and we're encouraging them to book in, and they book in with us, or maybe they don't. What's happened there? What's wrong with our funnel? Maybe the funnel itself is actually broken and it's a technical thing and they didn't receive email number 3. Maybe it's something you put in their email wrong. There could be something obvious, or it could be something less obvious in that you've got a spelling mistake in there and the people who happen to have found your website are all grammar geeks or something. So it could be something technical, but it could be the wording within there, or it might be that you're just not asking them to book that appointment. You're not giving them the value that they would like to see and that they would appreciate. So when we're looking at it, we do need to look at our numbers. We do need to look at what's going on with our books and how we can work our books out over the time that we work, remembering that we don't work 52 weeks a year and we don't work 7 days a week. So when we're working out our numbers, we're working them out to the number of weeks a year that we work. So if you want to earn $40,000 a year, how many weeks are you going to, I'm working 40 weeks a year, I want to earn $40,000 a year. Easy enough to work out how much you have to earn each week, for to be each month, to earn your $40,000. So what are you going to do within that time to make sure that you make that money and you have those clients coming back? All right. I think some of these things are really important. So, when I was talking to Emily, she was discussing the different types of mentoring, and some people are all about, the emotional you, the spiritual you, and that is so not me. When you mentor with me, you get a list of jobs that you have to go and do before I see you next time. And because those are the things that people haven't realized they need to do, or they've been putting off, and they need a kick up the pants to do. Put it politely. So anyway, so I just thought, because we touched on the mentoring aspect last time with Emily, it'd be a really good idea if this time we talked about those numbers and how important it is to have statistics at your fingertips. And I've got mine through Stripe and through my bookkeeper. And if you're using Xero, then you will have them through your Xero. It's really important that you are getting proper business advice from accountants and from people who are good at that bit, who can help you structure from the first moment so you structure correctly. So, it might be you shouldn't be a solo trader. You shouldn't have signed up as that because of the way your family works. It might be better that you're in a family trust. These are the things that you need to talk around and with your accountant and your financial advisor. So they're really specific for you, and you get the right advice for you and your business and your home and your life. And then you're able to work out, how much should I be earning? What is everything costing me? What is my baseline? So I've got some simple spreadsheets in the academy for people to work out their baseline, but you really need to take proper financial advice and work it out properly from day one. It's like, we talked about using the right systems. We both use Halaxy. Whichever system you choose, and there's some really good ones, Simple Clinic, Practice Better. There's all sorts of ones out there. And whichever one you choose has to be legally compliant because it has to store notes. But, it's easier to start with a system and stick with it so that you know it really well and you don't have to change down the line because I had to change from paper to an online system. Thankfully, I had that all completed, up and running, and was very happy with it by October 2019 because I love to write. I write everywhere. I have a desk blotter that's covered in words. I have journals next to me. I write things down. So that's obviously my era, but I'm pretty techie these days. So I had to get everything online so that I would be able to work with my clients online. And thankfully I was up and, I was online anyway doing all of my mentoring stuff, but it meant that I was up and running and smoothly going, and I'm not going to change. It doesn't matter, people say, this system, that system. I'm going to stick with the system I've got and it does work for me. But when we change, we have to be prepared for the time it takes to change from one system to another or to move on to a system in the first place. I actually employed someone to get all of my notes up onto Halaxy. I just thought, I haven't got time, I haven't got energy, and because I'd been trying to do it for years, and I thought if I just keep trying to do it, this just isn't going to happen. It can't happen. I don't have the energy, the brain space, or the time to do this. Whereas if I'd already started at the beginning putting my clients onto a system, I wouldn't then have been trying to figure it out at the beginning, end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So let's think about some systems. Sit down. What are your systems? How are you emailing clients? How are you storing their notes? How are you taking their money? How are you booking their appointments in? And how do all of these things flow? It's really important that the client it's a speed opportunity to fill everything in with you, to find, to pay, to fill out your intake form, which should include the consent form and any other forms you need in there. So they've paid, they fill out the form, they pick their appointment, then they fill out the form, and that all flows through so that you have that information ready to go when you see them. Now, I ask them at the bottom of the consent form, please bring any bloods with you might have, but I'm going to decide at that first or the second appointment what bloods I want, what things, any tests or whatever it is, analyses that I'm going to need after I've seen them, because I've made that right back in in the beginning, I was sending out all of the information at that before I even saw them. And I'd have people cancelling because I was overwhelming them with too much information for them to fill out. I was asking too much of them when I didn't know them, and it was too confronting for them. And also they'd put off that first appointment while they were going off getting these tests and things done. And I want to see them whether or not I've got those analysis or test results, because we can do a lot with food. We don't know, they might have a needle phobia. We don't know, they might have an eating disorder, and asking them to fill out a food diary is too confronting for them. So we need to meet these people, build that rapport, build that trust, know what our finances are doing, how much it's costing us to see them, how much it cost us to get that client in the door, and how much it's costing us to keep them. All right. And there's other things outside of, straight advertising, like this podcast. Now, realistically, you look at the podcast, it costs me money. This just costs me money. I don't make any money on my podcast. Okay. I don't have advertising on my podcast. I haven't looked. I can do advertising on my podcast if I wanted to. I could look for sponsors of my podcast. I have not done so. I have chosen to pay for the podcast. So I have someone who edits it and puts it up for me. So I pay to have this out into the world. So now what is my ROI on this? Is this worth it? Yes, I think it is, because people who talk to me say, I love your podcast, Geraldine. I listened to your podcast. That podcast was really helpful. I really liked it when you talked to that person, etc., etc. So financially it costs me money, but ultimately I believe for me, because I'm a talker, I'm a handwriter, not a blog typist and a talker. It is bringing people in or getting people to know me better and closer to me. That's not to say a podcast is perfect for you. It might be. Give it a go if you think it is, especially if you're techie and you can do it yourself. But think about, where is the money coming from? How am I using it? What's it going towards? And how much of it comes in on a regular basis? Understanding our spreadsheets will help us in the long run. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. It was just something that sparked after speaking with Emily that I thought, maybe we should go down this road a little bit and talk about some of these things and have a bit of a thought, have a bit of a play with, what are my systems? Are they working? Do I need to change them? How can I change them within what I do? Because it might be you've been using a system for a really long time and you haven't got the time or the energy to change it, just like it took me forever to change from paper to computer. But you might be on a system, it's like, this isn't really working, but how can we make it work without you having to go through the whole gamut of changing to an online practice system? How can we make it flow for you that works for you? I mean, this is what I do in my 90-day program. When I talk to people, we work out their systems and how they can make things flow for them specifically in what they do. They get access to the academy, they get access to the next level groups, to the immersion groups, and we really nut out how to work things for them that work best. So I'm going to leave you with that. I hope this has helped. I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear what you thought about today's program. Email me, Geraldine at mentoringwithgeraldine.biz, and leave a review. That would be lovely too. Preferably a 5-star one. Somebody really rudely left a 1-star one, which has dropped my rating. So, but some people are like that, keyboard warriors and all of that. So I would love to hear from you, and I would love to know how this has helped you and what you have gained by listening to my podcasts. So have an absolutely brilliant rest of day, and I look forward to speaking to you on the next cast. Bye. Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for the weekly episodes. If you'd like even more support and learning, then the Academy is for you. Here you'll find part 2 of the herbal discussions, more clinical learning, and case studies to support your clients in practice. Bye for now.